Matthew chapter 17 verses 1 through 9. From the shining cloud the Father's voice is heard, "This is my beloved Son, hear him." Jesus took Peter, James, and John his brother, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became white as light. And behold, Moses and Elijah appeared to them, conversing with him. Then Peter said to Jesus in reply, "Lord, it is good that we are here. If you wish, I will make 3 tents here. One for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." He was still speaking, behold, a bright cloud cast a shadow over them. Then from the cloud came a voice that said, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." When the disciples heard this, they fell prostrate, and were very much afraid. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, "Rise, and do not be afraid." And when the disciples raised their eyes, they saw no one else but Jesus alone. As they were coming down from the mountain, Jesus charged them, "Do not tell the vision to anyone, until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead." The Gospel of the Lord. The Transfiguration is an amazing event which clearly shows that there is life after death. Moses and Elijah, who had died an earthly death many centuries earlier, now appeared to Peter, James, John and the earthly Jesus. Another proof is that the apostles heard and understood what the conversation was about. Moses represented the law, or the Old Covenant. He was also the author of the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, and he was the one who predicted the coming of a great prophet. Elijah represented the prophets who had foretold the coming of the Messiah, the one who God would send to save us all. It is important to remember that God appeared to both Moses and Elijah, and where did God make those appearances? On mountains, similar to the setting on which the apostles find themselves. From the dialogue we know that Jesus is anticipating his coming death and suffering in Jerusalem. In the previous chapter of Matthew, Jesus had asked his apostles, who they thought he was, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter said in reply, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." Because of the timeline presented in the book of Daniel, the scholars knew that the Messiah could be expected at any moment, but Jesus' followers knew he was already there. Matthew often represents Jesus as the new Moses, who both led the Israelites to freedom and salvation. Moses also took 3 companions up a mountain, and on the 7th day it was overshadowed by a shining cloud of God's presence. Jesus, too, took 3 with him up the mountain, and the mountain was also overshadowed by a cloud. Moses spoke to God and his face became radiant. Jesus also was transfigured before the 3 apostles, and his face shone like the sun. We hear Moses tell of the coming prophet, the Messiah, and he tells the people to listen to him. At Jesus' transfiguration we hear God the Father say, "Listen to him." We know that Moses was 120 years old when he died, yet his eyes were not weak, nor his strength gone. In spite of his age, Moses was still in his prime when he was called home. Moses was 80 years old at the time of the Exodus, the departure of a large number of people, and was with his people in the desert for 40 years before his death in 1405. You will recall that Elijah did not die, but was taken up to heaven in a whirlwind. This took place during the reign of King Josiah 641 to 609 BC. Both Moses and Elijah appeared with Jesus at the Transfiguration. Moses had died about 1435 years before Jesus began his ministry, which is another proof of life after death. Elijah did not experience human death but was taken up or assumed into heaven by God. There is a difference between Elijah's assumption and Jesus' ascension into heaven. Jesus' ascension means that he raised himself up, under his own power, because he didn't need to be saved. Elijah, on the other hand, did need a savior. In this case the savior was God himself. Mount Tabor is thought to be the site of the Transfiguration. As you can see, it is a short distance from Nazareth. It is so close you can look down from the mountain into the city of Nazareth. The mountain was a natural place of beauty. A mountain was often associated with closeness to God and the readiness to receive his word. Recall, God had appeared to both Moses and Elijah on mountains. In the 1920s the Franciscans built the Church of the Transfiguration over ruins of a Byzantine chapel. In front of the church are the remains of the ancient church. At the foot of the mountain is the little village of Nain. There Jesus raised the son of the poor widow from the dead. Through his transfiguration, Christ shows us the glory that will be ours in future, if we remain faithful to him. 2 Timothy chapter 4 verses 7 and 8, I have competed well, I have finished the race, I have kept the faith. From now on the crown of righteousness awaits me, which the Lord, the just judge, will award to me on that day, and not only to me, but to all who have longed for his appearance.